future.
Pickle.
Yes.
Captain to bridge.
Spock here.
Any signs of life?
Negative.
Have you tried all hailing frequencies?
Affirmative. No answer from the cube.
Have the department heads meet me on the bridge.
Already standing by.
Life sciences.
Same report.
So are we gonna just let it hold us here? We've got phaser weapons. I vote we blast it.
I'll keep that in mind, Mr. Bailey. When this becomes a democracy.
You realize that the aim will, of course, be very crude.
I don't care if you hit the broadside of a barn. Just hurry, please.
Captain, why should I aim at such a structure?
Mind, Spock. Just get on with the job.
Hey guys, what's going on? You are listening to ThisWeekInGeek.net's Future Imperfect. This is the show where we talk about all sorts of movies that are science fiction, have science topics. We might talk about something hard science. We might talk about maybe the moon landing. We might talk about a planet. We could even talk about robotics. But more often than not, we talk about movies, Star Trek, television shows, that sort of thing. And in today's show, I'm going to introduce myself before I go any further. I am Mike the Birdman, but I'm not alone as I travel through the dreamscapes of reality, weirdness, and other strange places out in the spaces between the stars. I'm joined with my best friend, my brother, from the great land of Kitchener, Ontario, Canada.
Alex, the producer here.
And of course, the movie aficionado, one of the smartest guys that I know. You know him. We love him.
Well,
from
I'm Aaron
Lansing,
Pollyea.
Michigan.
Yeah, I'm Aaron Pollyea.
Aaron
Sorry.
Pollyea.
Hey. Oh.
Sorry, guys. I've just got a lot of hyper energy right now. You were talking about being caffeinated. I'm on about 4 G fuels today. I'm ready
Get the sillies
to go.
out, buddy. Get the sillies out.
Yeah,
we're talking serious movies here. Serious.
Yeah. Serious as the guy from fucking Critters can possibly be. So tonight we have a series of 2 movies which don't really have a particularly connecting theme other than, as I was saying off air, strange German guys.
Yes. In fact, Birdman asked me what's the connective tissue here? And I said, you asked for 2 short movies.
I did.
So they are 2 short movies from the early 80s.
But you actually picked one that I've never heard of, and it actually came up with a lot of interesting ideas, and the reason I say that now, because we're talking about like Chat GPT and AI, and now that we're starting to talk about big government getting involved in like AI kind of research. I know, for example, one of our family members works for a rather large tech firm, and they've experimented with artificial intelligence. It's a very, very topical thing to kind of talk about right now. And then the other movie is a Dennis Quaid movie I've heard of, I've seen clips of, but I've never seen it until last night. I was honestly very pleasantly surprised by how much I really enjoyed that movie. So the 2 movies we're going to be talking about tonight, coming at us from, I just want to pull this, the proper year up. So from 1984, we're going to be talking about the movie Dreamscape. And this is a movie that I recognize because of the movie poster, which is done by artist Drew Struzan. But there's a very unique makeup effect in this movie where there's a guy who turns into a snake. And it's very, very, very distinctive, very, very, very 80s, very that Ray Harryhausen sort of look. It looks kind of cool. I mean, if I'm going to be honest, starring Dennis Quaid, George Wendt, Max von Sydow, and the guy who played Sully from the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie Commando, who I found out later in life played, I think it was President Truman in something fairly significant for a number of seasons. So that was a very, very pleasant surprise. And then the other movie stars the lead bounty hunter from the Critters movies, the guy with, there's no nice way to say it, the guy with the weird teeth. And I'm sure there's other famous actors in that movie, but I recognize him. So we're going to talk about Dreamscape first, only because Beaker's being fucking annoying. Sorry. Beaker's, he keeps trying to get his toy mouse. I've put it to bed in my desk and he keeps trying to get it. Beaker, I love you, but you can't be on the show right now. So, I was watching Dreamscape. So the best way to sum up this movie, and I'll do it, then we'll kind of go around the round table here. There is a psychic named Alex. He used to be part of a government sponsored research into psychic phenomena, and he left the project at some early point in his life because he's like, hey, I don't like what's kind of going on here. So he was using his psychic talents to basically be a womanizer and a compulsive gambler. So he would like be able to predict the outcome of like horse races, cards, and that sort of thing. Basically, he was like your very much Han Solo kind of sleazeball sort of thing. So his old friend and mentor, Max von Sydow, I think the character's name is Paul, calls him back and says, hey, the government wants to do something. We could really, really, really use your help in doing this. And it's not what you might expect. Hear me out. And it involves this thing called dream linking. And dream linking is the ability for a psychically gifted individual to enter another person's dreams and be able to help them work through mental trauma. So the idea was that they could help someone deal with maybe deep-seated insecurities. Maybe they have a fear of like heights or something. And in the movie, one guy is dealing with a fear of his wife being unfaithful to him, where he thinks his wife is sleeping with everybody, including a randomly bizarre Japanese gardener for some reason. And then it's found out later on in the movie that one of the project people involved is involved in something worse than the CIA, because it turns out over the course of this research, they have discovered that if you die in your dream, you die for real. So this is very much in that same vein of Nightmare on like Elm Street sort of thing. And it eventually involves a plot to kill the president, because every movie in the 1980s, the president has to die for some reason. And then our hero, Alex, basically tries to save the day to get involved to stop this other renegade psychic who's working with Christopher Plummer, who's the guy who works for the CIA. I can't remember that character's name. So Christopher Plummer. And he meets up with another research scientist at this thing working alongside Max von Sydow, and they basically try and save the president's life. And overall, I was very entertained by this movie. And I was saying this to Alex and Aaron before we came on air. I feel like people know about this movie because of the name and the stars in it, but I don't think that many people have seen it. Am I alone in kind of thinking this?
I'll say this. I believe that people don't even know who's in this movie. I was telling Aaron before that for me, I only knew this movie from the poster / VHS cover. I feel that people confuse this movie with Inner Space.
Yeah, I could see that actually.
Not because of the plots, because obviously I'm saying I feel like most people don't know that these are different movies, just from the posters and from the names.
I've seen Inner Space like dozens of times, right? I've never seen this. I've known about it, but I mean, like Mike, you really liked this. I guess
yeah.
I had like a different stance. I was kind of unengaged with it. Okay. It felt like I've seen this 1,000 times before, even though I know I haven't. It's weird. It's a very strange feeling movie because of that. It felt like I was a passive participant watching it in some ways, and maybe that's by design. I kind of knew what was coming up next time. You know, like every scene.
To me, it was weird seeing the screamy lady from Temple of Doom in something else. I didn't even, because of how little I knew, I didn't realize she's been married to Spielberg since like forever.
Was she the love interest?
Yes.
Oh wow, I didn't even recognize her
because she wasn't screaming at the top of her lungs the whole time.
That's Kate Capshaw.
Yeah. Now, in watching this, to me, this looked like they gave a $6 million. That's a decent budget for the time. Maybe not crazy, but to me, this looked like they just merged two movies together. It looks like they took two David Cronenberg movies. They took Scanners and merged it with Dead Zone.
Yeah, I can
I
see
can
that.
see that.
I mean, it's the psychics using their minds to enter people's dreams and control them and kill them, and or manipulate them at the same time. You have the dead zone where it's you got a good guy that's can, instead of seeing the future, he can see people's dreams, and there's weird plots involving nuclear holocaust and the president, and just the pacing and the way it looked felt like one of those movies. It felt a lot like The Dead Zone.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I could definitely see that. One thing that they try and do to differentiate rather when Dennis Quaid's character Alex enters someone's mind, they do this weird tunnel sequence where they like superimpose like a kaleidoscope over something, and you're like, I'm entering your mind.
It looks like the 60s time tunnel TV show mixed with like sliders.
Yeah. I mean, and I guess for the time, maybe it was effective. Not really, but
There's a couple effects that look really rough here, and then a couple that look pretty decent.
The one thing that I liked, and it's only because the effect really looks rough, it kind of lends to this dreamlike sequence to it, is there's a part where he enters this one guy's dream for the first time to see if he can do this dream linking thing. And it's a guy at a construction site, and he's high above the ground working on a girder, and he gets on top of the girder and he's trying to save this guy's life, but his shirt keeps ripping because he's trying to grab a hold of his arm, but he just can't do it. So Dennis Quaid's character falls, and it looks like Ronnie Cox falling in like RoboCop. And something about that, I kind of dug that because it looks so surreal and fake. It's, that is the dream. It's not hyper photo kind of realistic. And I don't know, there were parts of the dream sequences that looked really interesting. There's a part where Alex goes into the mind of this child who dreams about this evil snake person, and it's given as like a plot point. Other psychics have entered this kid's mind and have died. They've gone insane, or they're just dead because they fought this like kind of snake thing. So Alex says, look, kid, I will help you the next time you fall asleep. We're going to beat this thing together. And he goes into this dream, and it's very like, I don't know, very Salvador Dali, where things are like very stretched out, and it's very weird.
The art, there's like non-Euclidean, no 90-degree angles, and
everything looked like German expressionist film in his dreams, or something like Tim Burton would make. I want to make a note that, to me, one of the most funny little things in this entire movie is when he's in there and he's like, they're like, that's my dad, he won't help, and he's like, damn right I won't.
Yeah, that I loved, actually.
Like the dad in his dreams is just an asshole sitting at a table. I thought that was kind of funny, and I did like when they have like the stairs to nowhere.
Yeah, like it was just such a cool effect where it goes down, the screen is all green and weird, and it's like descending into hell and just goes into this black abyss.
But did you notice that the other psychics in that helped and then went crazy or couldn't deal with it, they were all in his dream trying to fight it. What was different here was the Alex character fought it, but he got the kid to be the one that beats him.
That's right.
The kid overcame his nightmare, so they both were able to safely exit the dream without going crazy.
Yeah, like it was kind of cool how he was like making this kid really confident that he could do it, and he needed the kid to conquer his own fear, because it wouldn't matter if Alex had killed the monster, he needed to do it. And yeah, like
is this the only time that Max von Sydow has played a mad scientist that wasn't evil?
I was actually kind of thinking about it. I'm like, this is one of the few times I can think Max von Sydow has been like a really, really good guy. Shady, but not evil.
When I saw the whole time, all I could think of was like, so he's working here, and then does he go to his day job working with the brewmeister at Elsinore Brewery for like, because I looked at like these were filmed pretty much back to back, so it's like, is he working? Is this building going to be revealed to be inside the Royal Canadian Institute for the Mentally Insane?
But
developing mind-controlled drugs for the beer. Yeah.
Which side note is a better movie.
Like, one of the things that I liked about this is it always made me think, because I remember in the 60s and 70s and 80s, there was a lot of talk in conspiracy circles where people would talk about things like remote viewing, which is basically short form for astral projection, basically using the supernatural as a weapon by
You're talking about MK
government.
Ultra.
Yeah, exactly. And I was kind of thinking this is an interesting take on that, because people in their dreams, that's a really effective assassination tool, but they do place limits on the tech in this, because, for example, Alex has to be close to the person, but he's the only one who can do it without use of a machine. Later in the movie, the other character, Tommy, played by, like I said, the guy from Commando, he learns how to do it, but it takes him a really long time. And
also that's when it starts to feel like scanners to me. Like, are they going to scan each other and blow their brains out? And they kind of sort of did.
Yeah. But I don't know. I always loved the idea of the government using supernatural elements to do intelligence gathering and all that sort of shit. I mean, that's sort of the conspiracy theory stuff that I really dig. Whether MK Ultra in real life was any sort of a success, I mean, if you listen to shows like George Norrie and Art Bell, we've heard about it for decades. There's been tons of movies and YouTube documentaries on it. So think about that what you will. But
yeah, my final thoughts on this movie are, it had some interesting ideas. I was glad to see a ton of famous, or at least infamous, character actors in it too, where it's I know that guy, and some of those guys are still working today in the similar kind of roles. But to me, what this screams to me is, this is a movie that could really use a remake, and with have some quality people write it. You could make it into a miniseries or something that Apple TV or Hulu or something would put out. But you could really do a fair bit, and I don't just mean making it a CGI fest. You could do some practical effects. There's a lot of stuff you could do just with how things are written today and how they shoot things. A lot more of the psychological. The one thing that they never touched upon in here was, they could have done more with are we awake or are we still dreaming? That sort of stuff. They didn't really do any of that. And you could have done something like they did a little bit with the president, how he was given a sedative, so he was in his dream. Problem there is, we already know that if you give somebody a sedative that strong, they don't actually dream. So, there was aspects in here where they understood the science and gave it layman's terms, but there's a lot of scientific inaccuracies here. One thing that was kind of accurate, that was kind of neat, is I had to go for a sleep study. I know you did, Mike. Anybody that had to have a CPAP machine, you've had to go for that. The diodes and probes that they put on his head when he's in the chair, they're identical. Like the breadboard that they use, that hasn't changed from 1984 to 2024. In 40 years, there's no difference.
I've had a sleep study as well, but that was mainly because not for a CPAP or anything. It was for not being able to sleep.
Yeah, well, same thing. Anybody who's had a sleep study for any reason, that you look at it, there was accuracy there, and that was probably, at the time, that would have been top of the line, brand new tech. Like, it wasn't that many years earlier that they would have been doing a proper sleep study like that. So I like that was there, but then there were other aspects where it's like the overabundance, because at the time, not a lot of people would have understood what it was. Like REM sleep, and he describes it to the camera what it is. It's like, yeah, we already know that. But I got to remember, 40 years ago, most people didn't know what that was.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's fine, but there are some inaccuracies there. I do think you give this to a really good writing team, and this is a really good concept. I don't know if it's necessarily for a recurring series, but you could make a really good movie or miniseries out of it.
Yeah, 100%. I could, what? If you wanted to do the miniseries route, you could even set it in the same universe as a continuation and bring back Dennis Quaid's character. maybe at like halfway through the series, maybe Alex's maybe the research from Paul Max von Sydow's character is recovered, and Alex has to come back and suppress the information so this doesn't get back out into the government. Yeah, I would love to see this remade, especially on like Apple Plus. If you have this 3 episode minimum, but no more than 6, I think you could do some really fine work with this.
You could adapt things in such a way that you want to make it modern, introduce AI. What if there is an algorithm or a program, an AI, that is, instead of a human being hooked up, they have your brain hooked up to the machine, a la, what's that stupid thing that Elon Musk is making, implanting chips?
Oh yeah, that weird
the
thing.
Neuralink, whatever it is.
Neuralink,
yeah. And what if it becomes people are having to dive into the dreams because people are hooked up, people with insomnia have gotten this implant that when hooked up with the software analyzes their dreams and helps them have, good dreams. But suddenly a whole bunch of people go into a coma and they don't know why. And then people have to find Quaid's character and some of these psychics, and they have to dive back in, and they see it's just AI run amok controlling our brains and all this crazy stuff. You could do fun stuff with it that way.
Yeah,
I would probably go down the route of having it take place in the late 80s, early 90s, before the fall of the Soviet Union, and have their psychic research teams, because the KGB also did the research that the CIA did for MK Ultra, and they're doing it.
So it's kind of like Stranger Things, but
not like Stranger Things, because Stranger Things was more of like we're like doing tunneling dimension stuff, but this would be like
what I meant was that they were running their own parallel program, sort of idea.
Yeah, because they were, the Soviets really were, but like have like an assassination attempt again, but not against the U.S. It's against like an allied nations leader from the Soviets,
maybe like France or something.
Or people, they're at a trial at The Hague or something, and then like the judge just dies mysteriously, and so does some other random representatives that were in the proximity. It turns out like a bunch of people on the same floor of this hotel died in their dreams.
That could be really kind of cool, actually.
You could make parallels with the whole Havana syndrome thing that's been happening for the past few years.
Yeah. Stay away from walls with I guess stay away from anywhere where they might use sonic waves on you.
Well, the U.S. Embassy in Moscow was built right across the street from an Orthodox church, and the diplomats in the embassy used to call that church Our Lady of the Blessed Microchip, because the Soviets used to bombard the embassy with microwaves, radio waves, everything like that to try to eavesdrop, and they often were able to. But they also joked that you could hold a hot dog out the window and it would cook. The amount of
oh god,
that is crazy.
Our Lady of the Microchip.
Ultimately, I think Dreamscape is definitely worth seeing. It was an unexpected joy for me.
For you, for me, I was on the fence. Whereas Aaron, so it's going to be, I think, depending on your mood and what you want to get out of it.
Yeah, because I wouldn't say I'm on the fence. I would be like just slightly over the fence into I really wasn't into it, but I can totally see why somebody could really enjoy this.
Like for me, it just hit right the levels of supernatural and science, and I really like Dennis Quaid in this movie. Like that really surprised me.
Well,
like I was surprised by him.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw when you see it's Max von Sydow and Christopher Plummer, you're like, okay, well, at least some of the actors are going to be good, regardless of what material it is. But everybody was pretty good. So, I mean, it's worth it, but it's kind of slow, and it's also kind of just happening. I don't like it's just there, and maybe that was
the opposite. I thought it was paced really well. Our next movie, I thought was paced fucking terribly.
Wow.
And I like this movie a lot better.
Yeah, and see,
I
weird.
love
this movie.
Okay, so our next movie we're going to talk about next comes from 1982, and it's called Android. And this was directed by Aaron Lipstadt, starring Don Keith Opper and Klaus Kinski. Again, I thought this was the pairing of weird German people. I just want to see what else this Aaron Lipstadt has done for movies. He also he was a production manager on Battle Beyond the Stars. He did Saturday the 14th, Galaxy of Terror, Slumber Party Massacre, which me and Enrique talked about a couple of months ago here on the show. And what else did he do? Some episodes of Quantum Leap, Law and Order, that's funny, and Law and Order, and a bunch of TV bullshit. So, Alex, explain the plot to this movie to me, because I was at times lost, and other times I knew what was going on. So please.
It is the far future of, I think, was it 2036?
It's in the 2030s, yeah.
And there had been some sort of war or something that had been going on and might still be going on through proxy, where androids or artificial intelligence was, I think, outlawed, but I don't know if they explicitly say that. And Klaus Kinski is a scientist who is working for some government of some sort, experimenting, trying to discover either a cure or what causes something. What were they calling it? Was it Munich syndrome or something?
Yeah.
Munich syndrome is where the androids malfunction and gain
sentience?
Gain control, basically, where they're able to override like the old Asimov laws of robotics, where they can not only think for themselves, but they become violent towards humans, and a la Blade Runner. And you're introduced to the main android, who, weirdly enough, in this they didn't give the actor credits. They just said that he was the robot.
Which I thought that was kind of funny, actually. And Max 404 as himself.
Yeah, and introducing Max 404 as himself. And every piece of promotional material for it doesn't state who the actor is. I would have had it in my contract. I still get paid even if you don't credit me. And we're introduced to him watching, I guess, sexual reproductive instructional videos done in like a silhouette that looks like it's from a light bright
wireframe.
Yeah, like wireframe, something you'd see on like a Commodore PET or Commodore 64, and it's interesting, and you're introduced to him, and you know he's an android right away. I'll say this: the movie was filmed for less than $1 million, and had better production design and like set design than movies with 10 times its budget at that era. So
the special effects, like the model work in it, is actually really good.
There's basically, he's doing all this stuff. They still have to do it in secret. He eavesdrops on Klaus Kinski and finds out that they might be shutting down the program that he's a part of for the study. At the same time, he was also playing Mike. Did you catch what video game he was playing?
Was that Asteroids or something?
No, sorry. That was a Vectrix.
Oh man, I thought it looked kind of familiar.
Yeah, they took they debadged it so that Vector Graphics home console, where it came with a monitor that only displayed Vector Graphics, it couldn't display anything with Vector Graphics. They just put that in the movie and made it seem like it was some futuristic thing from like 50 years later. And then there was a bunch of other stuff that was rebadged that way, and he's playing music, and the idea is he's becoming very human-like, but at the same time not really understanding how humans interact. And Klaus is getting a little suspicious of him, and then eventually 3 people escape from a prison ship by commandeering it and arrive, and then the rest of the movie is off and on investigation, cat and mouse game of who's going to betray who. The android wants to sleep with the human lady. The human lady goes through some pretty horrific shit and gets killed. Then, or right around that time, the android kills the police that are pursuing them, and they're like, "What?" He's like, they're trying to figure out why he would have no reaction. They realize he's an android. Klaus Kinski admits he's going to end up killing the android to replace him with a female android. A female android that he wants for sexual gratification, but also it will be under the table because the government doesn't want the androids anymore at all. And then
it's also because it's going to be an android that's like immune to like this syndrome.
Yeah, a perfectly obedient android that will always do what you say and not malfunction or evolve beyond a certain point. And there is nudity in this, but it's also, this felt like a very, I mentioned to Aaron before we were recording, this felt like a very Western European German movie, but at the same time, I know it was made in America, it feels very European in the pacing and look and acting and everything as a whole. Everybody speaks English, but everybody has an accent, but they're like trying to hide the accent except for Klaus because he just doesn't. He doesn't care, and he doesn't care, and probably spent like 12 hours a day, 3 inches away from the director's face, screaming at the top of his lungs into his face about you know, I don't know.
I do not need this.
Or so, yeah. Like everybody look up Werner Herzog's discussions on how he dealt with Klaus all multiple movies and how they almost multiple times pointed guns at each other over having.
Oh my god!
Yeah. The Klaus Kinski stuff is pretty insane.
He's one of the hardest people to work with in not just Hollywood, like in movie history, Michael.
Yeah.
Oh wow! I had no clue.
Deeply mentally ill.
Yeah, he is mentally ill. Like he like I don't know. There's implications of him like sleeping with fairly young women.
Oh dear.
Yeah, he's there's been movies made about him, and they still don't really explain everything about him because he's a very complex, problematic, enigmatic, and odd person, yet was at one point, depending on who you talk to, pretty much top of his class in European acting, but crazy. Regardless, this is one of the times he made an American movie, and from everything I was trying to read beforehand, there wasn't any descriptions as to how terrible he was on set, so maybe he was okay. But yes, all this crazy stuff is happening. Murders and back and forth, and then the end of the movie turns into that movie from, what was it, 2014 or 2015, Deus Ex Machina?
Yeah.
Where they end up, they do come alive or have the power to, you know, overcome their syndrome, but in reality he had his brain reprogrammed so he could murder on behalf of the doctor. But he murders the doctor with the help of the I actually forgot the name of. Did he give a name to the android, the female android?
Cassandra.
Oh, yeah, Cassandra.
And Cassandra is clearly more fully functional as far as like she behaves as if
she's self-aware.
Not just self-aware, like he's self-aware, but behaves 100% the way a human would, with everything that comes with, including being able to lie and just overall be deceptive
and feel. Yeah.
And she reprograms him to give him his personality back from the murderous personality back to his sort of I guess quizzical boy-like wonderment, and they escape as if they are the doctors to Earth to presumably populate the Earth or reprogram all the androids to be like them. And
because
it's very much an ending like that Ex Machina movie. At the same time, like I don't know, like the special effect they had where she like commands him to open up his brain and it opens that little doorway with the little computer chips, and they use this. It looked really good, like really good for the time.
For sure. I really liked the spacecraft models. I really liked the space station model. All the effects in this movie were really good, and what I really liked, it was a subtle effect. Well, I shouldn't say subtle. It was pretty clear when it was happening, but when Kinski is taking out the chip out of our android's head, and he's getting reprogrammed, his vision changes. How he sees the world literally changes.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, that's a really nice touch. That's a really nice touch.
And when he's contorting his face, like he's basically having brain surgery, so he's got motor functions are changing, his mouth is shifting, and like you said, like it changes the way he looks at things. It even changes like the color grading to like be more focused on whatever he's supposed to be doing, his task at hand. But what I also liked is how it put the computer chip in. Like he has like a chip removal tool, and everything that all the props in this movie are real world items that were brand new at the time, where they just removed the labels of them and maybe gave them a paint job and or even somewhat repurposed them. I also liked how many movies from Roger Corman in the 80s, when they shot laser beams, were just like comically drawn lasers. In this, they fire, and I guess for the sake of the viewer, you'll see like a little flash of light on the actual gun itself, or you'll see a spark hit somebody. But because the laser's not part of the visible spectrum, it's just, you fire the gun and boom, you get blasted. I like that. It was a little more close to how we would actually see things if we were blasting somebody with a laser. As much as I love, pew pew lasers, Star Wars, this felt like a lot more grounded than most Roger Corman movies.
There was something that I liked about Max, and he has all these little idiosyncrasies about himself. He's very fascinated with like Earth culture. He loves Earth music, Earth movies. And there's one part at the end that really humanized the character for me. And he's talking with Cassandra. They've just killed Dr. Daniels, who's also revealed to be another android. And they're talking about their escape plan to go back to Earth, because Cassandra says, there are hundreds like us. We're not alone. We can go back there and we can help them. And Max looks at her. He's like, but I don't have my hat. And he has this weird like fedora thing he's been wearing this whole time. And there's just something about the inflection where he says that, but I want my hat. Like that's what grounds him to who he is. That's part of his identity.
Well, and the naivete that he's not really, like, you start to question, okay, she's supposed to be the perfect android, but in reality she's become like the perfect human, where she can lie and be deceitful and controlling. And when he doesn't have his programming changed on purpose, like before, he killed people but didn't really understand what the consequences were because he wasn't trained to. He's still kind of an innocent in everything.
Yeah, like there's something very interesting about this movie. Like I said, it wasn't until the action really kind of picked up, not because like, hey, there's murder, there's mayhem, there's gunfire now. It's when it started to ask the more interesting questions about artificial intelligence and AI, and talking about Asimov's rules of robotics. And I know we have talked about this on Future Imperfect, and probably loose cannon, probably even on the main show, Alex, where we talked about the ethics of AI. When does it reach that point? I think Aaron, you can probably correct me on this, probably Alex too, when we reach the singularity, where computers have reached that self-aware moment. And I don't know, there's something about the performances in this movie that I really, really liked. I didn't like the opening like 45 minutes of this movie, but when it started getting into the more human aspects of it, like that's something I've definitely noticed as I've grown my movie watching experience with like you two, and especially with Ken. I become very emotionally aware of the stories that I'm being told. And Max is one of those characters that I like, Alex, especially when you described him. He has this childlike wonder about him. He's very naive. He wants to learn more, but it's going to cost him to learn more. And I think that's what I liked about Android the most overall.
Well, and we glossed over, but like the twist at the end that Klaus Kinski himself was an android, like they basically rip his head off. And he's an android. He's like, I am not an android. And it's like, buddy, your head's off. your body's down there, your head's off. He's like, I am not an android, and they throw him in the garbage disposal chute. And I was like,
yeah, they just get rid of him. Yeah,
it's like, there we go, bye bye. It's like, wait, none of the police showing up know what the doctor is supposed to sound or look like?
I guess not.
Yeah, I mean that's a thing you could solve with like a simple phone call or like a database inquiry or something.
I can actually explain it. I think I can explain it because this was like a classified research project, and he was an android. It's not like the company would want to have records that would actually tie him directly back that they knew he was an android. Mm-hmm. So we're just going to erase whatever records we have and just say, okay, this is the name of our researcher here. And if anyone ever finds out that that's an android, we can say, well, we never knew, or, maybe an android took his place.
Yeah,
here's the real.
Just make it up that way, because they didn't know what his assistant looked like either, or that the assistant himself was the android subject they were studying.
All multiple layers of plausible deniability.
Yeah. I mean, I think this movie's worth watching once. I don't know how... I don't think this movie's worth adding to your collection, honestly. I mean, I don't even know if there's a high version copy of this. Alex, I don't know. Like, is this something you can get on 4K? Is this just a Blu-ray? Is this just like a standard DVD?
It's depending on the country. I think it's got a region-free Blu-ray of this.
Yeah, so I'm going to say it's worth checking out maybe once for curiosity's sake. It's an interesting story.
It's got
when
a
it gets going.
Really cool poster. Looks like something straight out of like an anime.
Yeah. So honestly, guys, so that's going to do it for this edition of Future Imperfect. We got more stuff. Alex has put together a bunch of theme stuff we're going to be talking about. We are going to be coming back to talk some Star Trek later on in the future. I'm trying to think of what else we got kind of coming up. I know it's a big anniversary in a couple of different sci-fi franchises coming up. I would actually like to talk about some directors coming up. I know Aliens is coming up on 4K later on this year. So I would love to talk about that movie at some point. I mean, I know it's been talked about to death, but I know in the Aliens franchise world, for example, friend of the show, Adam F. Goldberg, is writing a new Aliens comic that's kind of like a what-if scenario, which might be kind of fun. We have the Aliens movie coming out later on this year.
And you got to watch Silo before season 2 comes out so we can discuss that all together.
Yeah, Silo, man, that's a good show. That is a good show.
And I'm
tired Fallout.
I'm tired of waiting. So Aaron and I have to do at least 1 or 2 shows on For All Mankind.
Yeah, and that's a show I am gonna have to catch up at some point. But yeah, you guys take it. That is your thing.
It is the best show, hands down, on television right now. Where I'm not talking just sci-fi. The best show on television.
100% agree. The writing, the acting, the everything about it, the attention to detail is exquisite. Exquisite.
And Silo is in probably my personal top 5.
Oh wow. So yeah, guys, we've got a lot of good stuff coming up here on the show. You're going to hear stuff from myself, Aaron, and Alex, or you could be hearing from me, Ken, and David Denoyer. Lots of good stuff coming up here on ThisWeekInGeek.net. So again, thank you guys. We always appreciate your support. You can always reach out to the show if you want to reach us at feedback@ThisWeekInGeek.net. You can also reach us across social media at ThisWeekInGeek. You can reach me and Alex at Mike@ThisWeekInGeek.net, Alex @ThisWeekInGeek.net, and Aaron, if you want to send him some fan mail or feedback, you can do that at feedback@ThisWeekInGeek.net as well. So we are going to close this adventure here as we took a breeze through some unusual 1980s movies that you should probably check out at in some way or form if you have the capacity to either stream these, rent these across various streaming services, or pick them up if you happen to see them at your local video retailer. You should do that. So for This Week in Geeks Loose Cannon from Kitchener, we have been
Alex, the producer.
And from Lansing, Michigan,
I'm Aaron.
All right, guys, I've been Mike the Birdman saying live long and prosper.
Computer, this is Captain James Kirk of the USS Enterprise. Destruct sequence 1, code 1, 1A.
Computer, Initiate the self-destruct sequence. Authorization Janeway Pi 110.
Computer, this is Captain Benjamin Sisko. Initiate auto-destruct sequence. Authorization Cisco Alpha 1 Alpha.
Begin auto-destruct sequence. Authorization Picard 47 Alpha Tango.
Self-destruct in 15 minutes. There will be no further audio warning.
My lord, the ship appears to be deserted.
How can that be? They're hiding.
Yes, sir. But the bridge seems to be run by computer. It is the only thing speaking.
Speaking? Let me hear.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5.
Get out!
3,
Get out of there! Get out!
1.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at thisweekingeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.